All right, are we live? Let's see. Yep, we're live. Hello, everybody. Hope your day is going well so far. Oh, we have chat messages. All right, today I'm going to be working on Behemoth, which is a quest in the second act of Frontiers. If you're new and you don't know what Frontiers is, it's a game that I kickstarted a while ago and been working on for a long time. And Behemoth is one of the buggier missions in the game, and so I'm gonna try and play it today, play through it, see what kind of bugs I encounter, and just fix them as I go. Last time I did a dev stream, I debugged missions as well, but I only had one real goal, and I ended up fixing it way quicker than I expected. This time I'm keeping it more open-ended, and I'm just gonna see what I run into. I'm sure I'll run into a lot of weird stuff, so I should have no end of tasks to complete. All right, what I'm doing now is I'm loading a game that I saved previously that starts just outside of the area in which Behemoth begins. Now there's obviously gonna be story spoilers in this. If you care about that at all, you might want to bail out. But the general premise is of this particular mission. I won't explain the whole game, but the premise of this mission is you encounter a flooded lake, and in this freshwater lake there is a leviathan, which is typically a saltwater creature, and you're not sure why it's there or what it's doing there, and your mission is to sort of figure out what's going on. Okay, loading up. Ooh, all right, we got a Kickstarter backer. Good to see you. All right, as I mentioned last time, if you've played this on Steam, you know that it's a lot prettier than what you're seeing here. And the reason for that is that I'm playing this inside of the Unity editor, which is a 32-bit editor. And if you add the overhead of the editor on top of the game itself, you end up crashing frequently unless you turn all the settings way down. So that's what I'm doing. I'm playing it with lowest possible texture, lighting, everything. Like all the image effects are off, everything. So it looks like garbage, but at least I can play the thing and debug it. Alright, so here is the lake. And here is our first fella that we're supposed to encounter. Let me see if I have this conversation loaded. No, I don't. Let me load his conversation real quick just so I can follow it. Okay, so this is the conversation that we're about to have. And this is our conversation editor. It's actually a third-party editor for a completely different system, a totally different adventure game system. And we sort of co-opted it and added our own tags to it. It's just a nice, easy way to view a nested conversation, much easier than like an XML editor. So it's a little funky, like it has its own bugs or whatever, but it's great for working with conversations and exporting them into a format that Frontiers can understand. Okay, so I should see these 4 options when I talk to this guy. Oh, where'd he go? Is this our first bug already? Uh-oh. What was that? It looks like he made a splash. Oh, that might not be good. If he touched the surface of the water, I already see Leviathan stream out there. He might be a dead man walking. Okay, I better talk to him quick. A lot's happening already. I'm sure you're completely lost, but let's just talk to this guy. Time will stop. Okay. Wasn't expecting to see anyone so close to the lake. This is dangerous country nowadays, friend. What makes this place so dangerous? I didn't have much of a choice to the lake running so high, just passing through. Dangerous sounds like my cue to leave. I should read books on tape. I do really compelling voiceovers. Okay, what makes this place so dangerous? Our big friend in the lake. The one that's done for every man, woman, and child who didn't get when the getting was good. You must have heard its lovely singing voice. Okay. When I entered this area, I should have heard a Leviathan scream. I think I might have saved after that happened. So I'll at some point I'll have to backtrack and make sure that that happens. Okay. You've seen it. It's hard to miss. Leviathans tend to be, and this one's no runt. No idea why it's here. Never seen one before this. They're supposed to be sea creatures. They either don't come into fresh water or they don't stay there. From what I heard, they ain't supposed to be this angry either. Hasn't anyone tried to kill it? Kill a Leviathan or you're out of your mind? Get too close to this one and the next thing you know is gulp. The hunter mimes two great jaws snapping shut. You're gone and so is everyone standing near you. There ain't no such thing as killing one. The spiders don't make it any easier either. Spiders are important. Did you say spiders? That I did. Water spiders, if you're not familiar. Nasty things, big as a man. And they got gills and all. They live around the lake, catching fish with little sluice dams made out of dead wood. Tough suckers. Go along the shore long enough and you're bound to see some webs. Okay. Where did everyone go? All over. Okay, now this should put something on my map. Any direction from the lake. A lot of them ended up in Dunsford out west. Biggest town in these parts that hasn't got wet feet. All those refugees haven't done the place any favors, mind. Don't count on any hospitality if you go there. Okay, I'm going to head up to Dunsford. The hunter gives you a sour smile, la-di-da-di-da. Okay. Now, if everything's working correctly, that conversation should have given me... Okay, we're already in bug territory here. Strangely enough, I do have the Behemoth mission. However, it's erroneously reported as completed. Given that I didn't do any mission objectives at all, that's obviously a bug. So, it's time to start investigating. I'm going to save this game. It's Behemoth 2. And we'll see what's going on. Okay. Ooh, we got chat messages. Okay, good to know that the... why am I typing? Good to know that the scream is working. And also what's wrong with his face is I've temporarily disabled the NPC face scrambler. Like, it's a thing that matches faces to the different bodies. And I'm just using one face for all bodies right now just to keep things simple because the system wasn't working so hot. So now you end up with these, faces that are sort of like crudely mapped onto the wrong bodies, and it doesn't look right at all. All right, so now that I've got that saved, I'm going to quit this. I'm going to go to my profile, and we're going to check out the Behemoth mission and see what happened. Can I open this? I'll just open it with this for now. Objectives completed, true. That's mighty strange. Has completed, true. Okay. What I'm doing right now is I'm looking at some gobbledygook that probably won't be too clear to you. I'm looking at an XML mission. I'm going to open it in the XML browser so you actually stand a chance of being able to read it along with me. Where are we here? Railboy, Frontiers, Behemoth 2, Mission, Behemoth. Okay, so here is the mission. And under each mission you have a set of objectives. What I'm doing right now is I'm checking to see if these objectives actually were completed, and if the data, like if that mission browser is reporting the data correctly, or if it hasn't been completed and the browser's just messing up. So let's see. Status completed. Status dormant. Status dormant. Status completed. I have not talked to Gosgen. Boy, this is strange. Status completed. Time activated and time. Oh, look at this. Okay. Immediately upon activation, these were completed. That's useful information. So, I'm guessing that I introduced a new bug into the mission system after last week's bug fix that is somehow causing these to force complete. Okay. Well, this is a nasty one. I almost regret doing this on the stream because this is going to be a nasty one. All right, I'm going to look at missions, the missions manager, and mission, the individual mission manager. Okay, these are the two classes that that I worked on last time. The missions manager is really simple. It loads and creates missions, saves missions, and it lets missions talk to each other because missions, they don't have immediate access to each other. I actually think I didn't edit this. I didn't edit the missions manager at all, but I did edit missions. The main thing that I did was on activation, if I had a force complete on start mission, I force completed that mission. Now I don't know how that would introduce. Let me see if the Behemoth mission has a force complete on start mission by accident. No, it's empty. Okay, so it's not going to be that simple. Let me load the mission from the previous save game and just double check to make sure that it wasn't also completed, like before I even started this. Objectives completed true. Okay, I'm glad I did that because that means that that all these objectives are completed before I even started that game. And it looks like the time that it was activated was the time that all of these objectives were. No, man, this is confusing. Welcome to my life, guys. Okay, so it is different. Behemoth had been activated. Investigate Blacklake had been activated. It had also been completed. But go to Dunsford, recon the lake, etc., etc. Talk to Gosgen. Talk to Gosgen is active. Okay, I need to start keeping track here. Time to go to quest organization. All right, now this is my spreadsheet. This is where I keep track of all of this information. Here in Act 2 missions, here is basically this mission that we're looking at in sort of an even more human readable form. And in addition to this, I'm going to open up the form that I imported in just to sort of triangulate here and make sure I'm seeing it from all sides. Yes, making a game is very confusing. And no, you couldn't do this sober. I'm high as a kite right now. It's the only thing that's getting me through this. Okay. So what I'm doing right now is I'm verifying the hierarchy of these objectives, because in this format it's difficult to tell exactly which objectives own which other objectives. If an objective owns another objective, then the owned objective is automatically activated on completion of the previous objective by default. And so looking at it in this format, which is the actual format that I type in to import and turn into this XML, looking at it in this format helps me see the hierarchy more clearly. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got a bunch of objectives that are relying on conversation exchanges being completed, mission variables being completed, and that's about it. So either the conversation manager is erroneously reporting that these exchanges have taken place when in fact they haven't. And I know they haven't because in this save game I haven't spoken to any of these characters. Or the mission itself is bugging out and failing to check this properly. I'm going to guess it's the latter to start, because conversations, if that really was a problem, if it was incorrectly reporting that these exchanges had been completed when they haven't been, that would basically explode the game. And the game isn't exploded, it's working generally. So I'm gonna assume that it's the mission's fault. Where to even begin? Okay. I'm gonna load up Behemoth 1, check the state of the, like I said, the 32-bit Unity editor tends to crash a lot. It would be wonderful if they could release, I mean, not that they will at this point because this line is dead, but it would be wonderful if they had released a 64-bit Unity 4.7 editor. It would have probably cut my development time in half. I don't, believe it or not, I don't do caffeine anymore. I know I'm like a traitor to my fellow programmers, but I stopped drinking pop to save money. And now I can't do it anymore. First, I stopped drinking sugar pop because I was getting fat, believe it or not. And then I stopped drinking just pop in general because I was getting poor. And I used to drink, must have been 10 cans a day of this stuff. And oh man, you can't believe the caffeine headache I had in the couple weeks after I stopped. It just wouldn't relent. But I only have to take the recycling out like once every 2 weeks now. So that's a plus. Before we'd run out of room like every week. Are you considering Unity 5? I have answered that question a million times. No, the thing is I asked myself that question from time to time. I still ask myself that question. And I'm working in Unity 5 on other games, so I know it's not like a garbage engine or anything, like it's really good, but so much of Frontiers, so much of getting Frontiers to work has depended on working around like little kludgy bugs inside of the Unity 4X system, especially the lighting, which isn't great and requires a lot of massaging to get even the frame rates you're seeing. And if I upgraded to Unity 5, Unity 5 has a whole new set of weird little bugs. You're just exchanging existing strange little bugs for a bunch of new little bugs for a minor boost in performance, that that it would initially be useless to me because I would lose performance for losing all of the little kludgy fixes I had in place. Initially, my hope, I tried an upgrade. I did try an upgrade. I spent about a week just bringing everything over to Unity 5 just to see what would happen, and the frickin' thing exploded. It wouldn't even run. So, yeah, I'm not going to upgrade to Unity 5. There's the benefits. Oh, goodness. The benefits just aren't worth it. Okay, Behemoth is already completed in this mission. I'm looking at my save game here for the live game. What happens is when you load a save game, it just copies, it makes a duplicate, copies it into the live game, and this is what you work with as you're playing. Okay, objectives completed. This is so strange. It has not completed this objective. Complete on ignore false. Requires all false. What does this mean? I hate bugs like this. These are the worst. The best are when you can come at it from one or two angles. When it's simple enough, or the problem is simple enough, so that you can say, okay, it's either A or B. I'm going to try A. Oh, not A, therefore B, and you're out. Just like the mission thing I worked on last time, where I knew exactly what to do and just, I mean, it wasn't a bug, but you know what I mean. This one, it's like it could be happening so many different places that what I'm trying to decide right now is where do I start looking? Where do I start adding debug statements? And it's like I'm trying to load as much information in my head as I can and sort of get an intuitive idea of where it could be happening before I just start out doing stuff. Because that's what sometimes happens. I'll look at enough data almost with a blank mind, and you know, some part of my brain just says, oh, it's probably this, and then it ends up being right, you know, maybe 3 out of 5 times. Okay, I know what I'll do. What I'll do is I'll delete the mission state from my save game. Just delete it, which is equivalent to resetting it to the default. So when I load now, my save game will basically say, oh, he hasn't even started the Behemoth mission. And then we'll just see what happens. Oops, now we're loading Behemoth 1. Behemoth 1. Okay. Okay, we're loading that bad boy. And we'll just see what it does. The loading times are really annoying, but it's a good opportunity to check up on chat. Lots of projects spend a lot of time on it, more than I think anyone expected. Yes, absolutely. The tricky thing was that, and I can't blame Unity for this because, you know, they got to push their product, but Unity got in touch with a couple of devs and released articles sort of touting how easy it was to make the transition. I think Was it Rust? Rust was like the flagship one where the devs came in and said, "Oh yeah, it took 2 weeks, two easy weeks, and we're already seeing huge performance gains," which I don't doubt. But then, um, I didn't believe the hype, and I followed their progress over time, and sure enough, just week by week, they kept running into new weird little problems, and I think it's been going on for it's how long ago did that get released? It's more than 6 months, maybe even a year, and they're still running into random stuff. So, okay, Behemoth has not even been activated. When I talk to this guy, now there are two places where Behemoth can be triggered to activate. One is in Dryker, when you run into a guild member who says, "Hey, you should check out this flooding, you know, um, as part of your job." That activates it. Second is when you encounter the trigger surrounding the lake, which activates the scream, and you say, "What on earth was that?" And that also activates it. So we're not going to activate it through either of those two methods because the trigger's been fired and will not be ignored. However, anytime um, a conversation activates an objective or something like that, it will automatically activate the accompanying mission, just to make things simple. So in here, in this conversation, there's going to be, okay. Oh no, look at that. Something's got to be done regardless. Okay, it looks like I covered my bases here and put in an actual activate mission statement in here, um, instead of just activating an objective to go to Dunsford. So something's got to be done regardless is where I need to end up. So I came to investigate the washout road. Okay, I'm not gonna get it through that branch. You've seen it. Hasn't anyone tried to kill it? Something's got to be done regardless. Hasn't anyone tried to kill it? Something's got to be done regardless. Okay, I'm about to activate the Behemoth mission. Boom. I've got it. I've heard enough. Now let's see what this mission says. Complete a Behemoth. Look at that. Okay, something fucked up is happening. Pardon my French. Okay, well that's interesting. That's handy to know. It's good to know. I obviously haven't done these things. What is going on? All right, I'm going to dive into the mission. Let's look at activate mission. Now, this is weird, but just because the only thing I've changed recently is the force complete mission thing, I'm just going to add a debug log. Just to see if Behemoth is getting force completed for some bizarre reason. It's the first thing it's changed, so it's the first thing I'm going to check. It's probably not what's happening. But I just want to rule it out. Any thoughts on Amazon's new game engine? Amazon has a game engine? That's my question too. I haven't heard of it. Or maybe I have by a different name. What's the actual name of it? Okay, what function sets the mission state to be completed? Couldn't you just control F for that? I wish it were that simple. No, the way that, okay, let me do a brief overview of how missions work. And where is that thing that collapses everything? I always forget. Okay, whatever. I'm just going to collapse it manually. Yeah, I'll go over how the missions work. Maybe doing so will, trigger something in my brain. Da, 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 da. Okay, so this is the mission object. No, this is the missions manager. This is the missions object. And the way missions work is they're created by the missions manager. They don't know how to create themselves, and they're a mono behavior. So they're actually a game object that exists in the world. I don't know how much you know about Unity, but they're not just data. They're not just hanging out in the void. They're actually a game object. Um, and they have a mission state attached to them, which contains all of this information that I've been sort of peeking at. And the state is loaded into it by the missions manager. And then what it does is it uses that state to check whether or not it's finished whenever something relevant to it happens. Um, Now, let me go to the objective because the objective is the thing that actually listens for the world state. In the Frontiers system, there's a messaging system. It's really simple, um, and it sends basic information about the state of the world when certain things happen. Like when you speak to a character, it sends a spoke to character message. When another mission gets activated, it sends a mission activated message. And the objectives, they are asked to listen out for certain messages that are relevant to them. For instance, here, this mission objective has three scripts attached to it, all of which listen for conversation exchanges to happen. This script subscribes to the messaging system and says, okay, anytime a conversation exchange happens, I want you to let me know so that I can check if it was the conversation exchange that matters to me. Um, so once an objective hears that this relevant event has happened, it lets its parent mission know. It says, hey, something happened to me that I think might be important, that might trigger either me to finish or the entire mission to finish or something. So I need you to check me right now. And or not just check me, but check your entire state to see if you're finished or ignored or whatever, right? So try to complete mission is called. It happens over time because figuring out whether or not the conditions of the objectives are met is pretty intense. And if you do it all at once, it results in a horrible lag. So it's done over time, like over the course of several frames, usually about 1 or 2 seconds. So all that happens is the mission says for every objective in my list of objectives, I'm going to call try to complete. The objective checks each of its scripts, which you're seeing the data for in here. Um, it looks at every script and says, okay, I want you script to check if you are finished. That happens in this base class here. Check if completed. This is just a stub. Um, Here, let me find a good example of, no, these are all the objective scripts, the different types of objectives that you can save in a mission. Let me look for conversation exchange. Okay, So the script has this data, which I define here, conversation name, exchange index, la-di-da-di-da. Here are the avatar actions that it subscribes to. Um, this is just defined in the code. Okay, check if completed. So what this particular objective script does when it's called by the objective, which is called by the mission, is to ask the conversations manager if it has completed the exchange uh, that it has in this variable, the exchange name. And if it has, it sets its status as completed, and then it's finished checking. That's all it does. Super, super simple. Um, like the complexity in missions comes from stacking these. So this isn't a matter of, the whole point of this is I'm saying it isn't a matter of calling, you know, complete mission from one place. It's like it's like a little spider web of things. Like I said, I don't think that has completed exchange is returning false information, because if it was, everything else would be breaking. But there are many, many places where this system could break down. It doesn't take too long to explain why. La-di-da-di-da. Okay, we got a lot of chat. Lumberyard. Okay, I'm going to look at Lumberyard just real briefly, even though this is a total distraction. Free cross-platform 3D game engine for you to create the highest quality games, connect your games to the vast compute and storage that they do. Okay, there's their selling point, and engage fans on Twitch. By starting projects at Lumberyard, you can spend more of your time creating blah, blah, blah. Interesting. Oh, free with full source. Oh, but the storage isn't free, though. I like that it's got the full source, though. That's good. Yeah, I'll check it out. I'm curious myself. Okay. I don't know if you have, I know you have a lot on your plate right now. Have you thought of refining the UI? I'm going to think about it, but what am I going to do? I mean, we have missions to deal with. It's a little bit more important. It's all a matter of priorities. So yes, I have a lot on my plate. And yes, I've thought about it, but no, I'm not going to do it anytime soon. If it doesn't take too long to explain, why are the missions monobehaviors? Okay, they're monobehaviors because um, because of the way that I handle um, mission, no, not mission management, just managers in general. Um, coroutines are pretty much the most useful thing ever. And even though you only really need one game object in the scene to run all the coroutines ever, I find it really useful for missions to run their own coroutines. Originally, I had the mission manager, which is a monobehavior, and that's a monobehavior just because it makes it easier to. Oh, Unity, what are you doing? It just makes it easier to like visually see and interact with in this editor. Um, and originally, missions were just like pure data objects, and they would ask the missions manager to run coroutines to see if they were completed or whatever. But that got a little too confusing, so I made them into monobehaviors so that they can run their own coroutines and just handle all their own internal stuff. Um, so that's why I do it in that particular case. I lost the restrictions on the game engine. You have to use AWS. Yeah. I mean, I gathered that that's how they're making their money. And then checked fire. You're probably right. Okay, you don't need to use blah blah blah. Enough about this engine. Okay, thanks for the explanation. Is the equivalent of Johnsel console log or something else you could use to display within the game? Oh yeah, of course. That's what we're. Uh, I don't know if you joined us early enough to see, but the first thing I did was add a couple of debug logs to the force complete mission functions because that's the last thing I changed, and I just want to make sure that that isn't what's causing this weird thing to happen. Um, Da 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 da. All right. So now I'm going to, with that debug log in place, I'm going to play the game again and just verify that we're not force completing that mission by mistake for some weird reason. Oh, the Amazon engine is a recent fork of CryEngine. Ooh, I don't know about CryEngine, man. Like, it is pretty, but well, I guess it's if they're releasing the full source, I guess that makes it a little bit better. But I've heard nothing but complaints about the documentation and the bugs, and you know, it sounds like a real fixer-upper. That's totally secondhand experience. I haven't worked with CryEngine at all, so you know, don't take my word for it. Good. Well, yeah, I mean the rendering core. Um, I hear no complaints about the rendering core. I just hear complaints about the surrounding game engine. Lars, in your Twitch dashboard, did you set your now playing to game development or creative? Because all game dev is supposed to be in creative now. I don't know. Let's find out. Oh, this is weird. Oh, what am I doing? Creative? There. Is that right? How was I supposed to know that? Also, why is it supposed to be in creative and not game development? What's the benefit? I don't understand. Okay. What was I doing? Oh, right. We're okay. Blah blah blah. We're gonna clear the console. Double check Behemoth to make sure that it's not active. Okay, it's not. Gonna talk to this guy, and then we're gonna see if we're accidentally force completing. Okay, what mistakes place it dangerous? You've seen it. Something's got to be done regardless. Here we go. Okay, Behemoth completed, and we did not see force completing mission or anything like that, so we can rule that out. It's not what's happening. Slightly troubling, but that's fine. Okay, I'm gonna start a little. Forget this. We don't need that. Twitch actually removed the game development directory, so you can't even browse it, but you can still select it. Things like that are in Creative Now and an associated hashtag. You're all good now. No, I didn't get the memo. There's no category for so nobody can stumble it on the stream. Oh, that's well, good. Thanks for letting me know. Okay. All right, we've ruled out one possibility. Now on to the next 472. All right, well, one thing we can do is look specifically at the objective scripts that are getting called, because we only have two types in here. Excuse me, we only have two types. We have conversation exchange and mission variable check. And so I can put debug logs in these guys, just these two guys. Oh, here we go with formatting. checking if completed in objective mission name. Okay, la-di-da-di-da. Bug log result status toString. Okay, so that was the one. The other one was conversation exchange, right? Yeah. Seeing if completed in result okay. So that will tell us do I want to spam missions with debugs yet? Okay, I'm at least going to put a trying to complete mission here. Reach mission objective, la da da da. I'm relearning how this process goes. In the last devlog, I mentioned how like these systems are so big that I end up forgetting how they work, and I have to sort of re-educate myself. Last time I solved the problem so quickly, I didn't really get a chance to learn how the mission is completed. So I'm doing that now. Let me see refresh over time here. Okay, what am I doing here? Refresh over time. What is this called? Refresh. Force complete objective. Force complete. Force fail. Force, okay, I'm not doing refresh there. What is the purpose of refresh? Oh my god. Maybe you guys know. Now that you switch, you're in the top stream. Oh, yeah. Does completing that conversation cause the behemoth itself to spawn? If so, it's possible it's spawning in such a place that it's dying on its own? No. So the behemoth itself is a total kludge. It doesn't. I don't know if you've played the game, but behemoths out in the wild, in the proper ocean, they're sort of like creatures, and they manage their own state. But the behemoth mission behemoth, the freshwater one is a totally fake thing that I just sort of made up, that isn't handled in the same way. So it can't get killed. Uh, uh, it can't that can't happen. Um, and also the behemoth is spawned on creation of that region, and it just stays there dormant, depending on whether the mission is activated or not. So we can rule that out. I found it helpful to generate a class diagram in Visual Studio products to tuning classes. Yeah, I generated a class diagram, and if you want to know where my philosophy um, for later games comes from, the philosophy of totally like self-contained little cellular automata that don't talk to a whole lot of other classes, uh, a reduction in inheritance, as few manager classes as possible, all of that stuff. A lot of it comes from um, seeing the complexity visibly through these class diagrams. It was the most hideous spaghetti that I've ever seen. Like the diagram itself was worthless because it was so complex. Way too many things are touching each other in this system, in all of these systems, and I just I don't do things like that anymore, and it's made my life much easier. Um, Euclidean, we didn't do that way. Felt-tip circuits, I'm not doing that way. Changing things, finding out where bugs are happening. Oh, it was so much easier. You know, it would take 20 minutes instead of 3 hours. So yeah, untie those knots. Sure. You can follow. By the way, if any of you care to follow what I'm doing in the actual code, it's all available there. Okay. Now, what I really need to nail down here is I need to look for where these subscriptions come into play, because the only thing that ever triggers a mission to complete is listening for a subscription. That's one thing that I managed to keep simple. Um, you never have uh, you never have the mission like reaching out and trying to figure out whether something has happened on its own. It is completely stupid and only listens for things. It never actively searches for things. So that means that in order for the process of completing the mission to begin, something has to push an event at it. And if I can find where, okay, mission objective. Okay, now the objective looks like, okay, here we are subscribing to it. This is the mission objective. When it refreshes, it subscribes to the avatar actions, the messaging system for each of its objective scripts. And it does it using the subscription listener, which is listening here. Okay, here's where it happens. Okay, this is where mission refresh comes into play. Now I understand why that exists. Okay, so when an avatar action is triggered, refresh the entire mission. So this is where it begins. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Mission. Okay, now I'm gonna output a debug for each of these possibilities. Already trying to refresh mission. Destroyed. Okay, so refresh checks all of these possibilities. If any of these are true, it says, nope, we're not going to do this. If none of them are true, we start to refresh over time. We wait for uh, the conversation to finish initiating. Don't overload the conversation exploded enough. Okay, that was to prevent lag when you're in the middle of conversations. Um, when you're in the middle of starting a conversation, obviously, as you're completing exchanges and stuff, you're refreshing the mission. But loading the initial conversation is really intense, so and it was causing problems in VR, so I made you wait here. Okay, then we wait for just a tad for all of this frame's updates to pile in. It's interesting. If we're not already completed, then we're active. We try to complete the mission and then we save. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. We don't really need this check because refresh already checks for that, but I'm not going to mess with it right now. Okay, try to complete mission. Here we go. And we've already got that there. And then the objectives that we actually care about, which are defined in here, are going to debug their own output based on what this is doing. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. I don't want to spam the debug log with too much crap. Okay, wait for that to compile. PubSub is the way to go. What's that? PubSub. All this Twitch stuff, man, it makes me feel old. I like all you kids know so much random stuff I'll never understand. Like I just got caught up on the whole Fine Bros thing, you know. I mean, because I've been that's been like a gnat in my ear, you know, for weeks, and I finally decided I need to understand what's happening here. And oh, publisher just I thought you were talking about something on Twitch. Okay, publisher subscriber architecture. Interesting. Sounds like another case where I came up with some like my own weird random term for a thing. Lars, is Unity a good engine for open world 3D games? Is there a better engine? It's not a good engine for open world 3D games. Not at all. Unity is a great engine if you're making small self-contained environments that are separated by scenes that are loaded and unloaded completely. If you stick to that paradigm, it's fantastic. If you try to do the thing like I did, where I'm dynamically loading and unloading a world as you go, it is fucking misery. It's misery. Don't do it. I am on Snapchat. Well, I don't know if I am anymore. I got Snapchat and I installed it and I used it once and I thought, what is the point of this? I don't understand. But technically I'm on Snapchat. So I got that going for me. um, Publisher subscriber architecture. I'm going to make a note of that. I mean, it's not, it's self-explanatory. I gather, I get the gist, but sometimes when I hear like the official term for something that I'm doing, I end up learning a lot of interesting ways to make it better. Okay, here we go again, activating this. Isn't this riveting? I mean, I thought by now we'd be seeing the behemoth and everything, but instead, like we're not even starting. Okay, has anyone tried to kill it? Something's got to be done regardless. Fresh mission legacy. Okay, this is all fine. This is all. That's just the missions that we already have. All right, something's got to be done regardless. Here we go. Boom. Now you can see Legacy is subscribed to a whole bunch of events. It's a really complex mission, and you can see why it's so important to make sure that we're not already checking it before running that script over time, because otherwise we'd be checking it 50 times in a row. Okay, let's see. Okay, checking if completed in Behemoth. So we've activated it, and we're trying to complete it. Result, dormant, completed. Now that's peculiar. Okay, no, this is good information. I know you guys can't see what I'm seeing on the output log because the Unity engine's font is so miserably small. Um, okay, so immediately upon activating Behemoth, it tries to complete the mission. That's just something that it does up front, because occasionally in the game, there are missions where you have already satisfied all of the requirements, and upon activating it, um, you want to know right away, like, well, I've finished this. You don't want to wait until you go and you trigger the first thing that you're supposed to do, and then realize, oh, it's actually completed. Maybe you can't even trigger the first thing because you've completed it. So anyway, the point is that it tries to complete itself immediately, just to see. I'm seeing that there. And it's checking the conversation exchange. And the result it's returning is dormant/completed. And what that means is that okay, the mission status, I know I'm being real scattered right now. The mission status is an enum. A mission can be many different things at once. Let me check chat to make sure you're all following. That is a handsome white blob NPC. Is your screen resolution just too high? No such thing. No, it's perfectly legible to me. I just mean for you guys. Okay, so the mission status can be dormant, active, completed, ignored, and failed simultaneously. By default, it's just dormant. If it's active, this process of creating the enum for the mission status is actually what got me started on thinking about a new type of flags system, where there's a way to better define combinations of flags, because the whole reason you use an enum in the first place is for exclusivity. You don't want something to be one thing and another. That's why, like, I don't have like a bool for each of these, because I don't want it to be possible to be all of these things at once. But at the same time, it can be a couple of these things at once. It can be completed and ignored, or completed and failed. It can be active and no, it can't be active. Oh, see, I'm already getting confused. But the point is, it should not be completed and dormant. That is not possible. That shouldn't be possible according to the rules. Yeah, okay, real quick. The combinations are completed and ignored, completed and failed, active, or dormant. Do I have that right? I don't even know, man. Welcome to my life. Let's see what kind of flag checks we're performing on status. Flags, check status. Active, right? Oh, God, I remember what happened now. Oh, this is taking me back. Initially, the system was more complex, and you could be many more combinations of these things, because I wanted to be able to judge how the player had performed in certain ways. Like if a mission was active and completed and ignored, it was different than it being dormant and completed and ignored. Because if it was active and you ignored it, that would count against you more than if it was never activated in the first place, and a whole bunch of other crap like that. I rolled back on a lot of that stuff. I said, okay, this is too complex. But at that point, this enum type was already so enmeshed into the system that I didn't want to remove that. So I started using it in a different way. So what's happening now is we're ending up with a funky combination of dormant and completed, which shouldn't happen because okay, this is good. If a mission objective If a mission objective is dormant, it shouldn't be checking if it's finished in the first place. Now, what was the objective conversation exchange? Check if completed. Why would completed and ignored be a possibility? Is ignored a user-invoked status? Technically, yes. So the way that it works is if an objective is dormant, completely dormant, it man, I'm confusing myself just trying to think about it out loud. Okay, all objectives start out as dormant. All missions start out as dormant. If an objective is optional, it can be ignored, and through ignoring it, it is completed. If an objective is required, if it is ignored, it is failed. Knowing that it is ignored, as opposed to God Almighty, I can't even talk about it. I need a Venn diagram or something. Dormant means it has not been initiated yet. Yeah, dormant means that the mission hasn't been activated. It isn't listening for anything. It's not on the radar in any way. Active means that the mission has been activated. It's woken up. Its subscribers are its subscriptions have been invoked. It's listening for events in the world, and it can trigger like mission refreshes, like what we're seeing. Completed means that whatever these, like this data in combination with the check has resulted in this function setting completed. That's all that it means. Every single check if completed function in these objective scripts, if the result is true, like if the character has reached the quest node, if the exchange name has been completed, whatever, what they do is they add completed to the mission status, to the objective status. If it's ignored, the objective doesn't know whether it's ignored or not. The mission is the only thing that can tell whether it's ignored. The only way something can get ignored is if the mission is completed and the objective is optional, and every objective other than the optional ones have been completed. Jesus Christ. I feel like I'm going to go back and like listen to this devlog, and it's just going to be word salad. Like it's not going to make any sense at all. It might have been a mistake to try and tackle missions during a devlog, especially since this is enough to like tie my brain in knots when I'm not trying to converse about it. When they add completed, should they not remove dormant? Then you could treat dormant as completed for optional objectives and don't need ignored. Now you do need ignored because ignored is treated as a special case. Now why is ignored treated as a special case? This is too much. You know what? I'm making an executive decision. Wandering into this briar patch without being prepared was a bad idea. I need to spend like 4 or 5 hours getting myself back up to date on the missions and like completely relearning how they work so that I can actually like do some work with them. Because right now I'm just sort of, you know, stumbling and tripping along trying to remember how they work in the midst of debugging them, and that's not going to work. Um, so I'm gonna drop the mission thing right now. I'm just gonna drop it. I'll do that on Friday, after I've spent some time, you know, getting back up to date on like mission status and like the basics like that. Instead, I'll do more of what I was kind of expecting to do anyway, which is to look around the Behemoth area, especially for the spider dam structure, and just see what kind of obvious bugs I can identify. Okay, so far so good. The big things are that the lake is at the elevated level. Um, that requires the mission to not be completed. I don't see any objects behaving totally weirdly right now. Well, I suppose we shouldn't have fire going underwater. That's interesting. I'm gonna make a note of that. Oh dear. Okay, I need to get out of the water because the Leviathan, oh god, is coming for me. Ugh. Alright, well, we also know that the Leviathan is behaving as expected. It appears to be systematically eating the furniture in the room. So that's good. With setting the Behemoth to active at the same time as the mission activates, fix it so it doesn't complete right away. Those logs are hollow with oil oxygen being propelled through them. It could be. Why would they add completed? Should they not remove? When they add completed, should they not remove dormant? Okay, I'm gonna skip that for now. With setting Behemoth to active at the same time as the mission activates, fix it so that it doesn't complete right away. I'm not sure what you're asking, Tuba Hobbit. It could be interpreted in a couple different ways. If you clarify, I'll try to answer. Alright, I'm going to leave you alone, Behemoth. And I'm going to go see if the bridge is working here. I can see it in the distance, so I know that it's spawning. For some reason, this bridge has been giving me all kinds of trouble as far as generating its colliders properly. I'm still not sure why. Let's see, stairs, are you gonna behave? Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, we have colliders on you. And we have colliders on the bridge. Okay, that's good. The river is lower. That's also good because this is... Wait, no, that's not good. It's supposed to be overflowing. It's supposed to be right up to the edge of the riverbanks because the water is dammed down there. Damned as in D-A-M. Okay, so that's a mistake. Let's check you out, river. What's going on? All right. Here we are in the edit view. We can see the lake here. Behemoth Lake. This is the script that controls the lake based on the state of the mission. And that has been set flooded. Now this river, Black Lake River, should have its water height set higher than it is. Target water level 5. Now the Behemoth Lake should set its target water level to lake water level high. So let's see what lake water level high is. Lake water level high is 5. Okay, so the Behemoth Lake is working correctly. It's the river that's not cooperating. So your current water level is 5. And when your water level on update, if the target water level is not approximately the current water level, the current water level is lurped to the target by the water level change speed. Let's see what the water level change speed is. 1, so it should be fine. The water level position is the base height plus the current water level, and then we set the local position to the water level position. Okay, what's the base height? Base height is 0. So that means that this should really be, I mean, if I'm reading this right, let's go into debug and look at the current water level. The current water level is 0. We don't need to debug. Okay, current water level is 0. Target water level is 5. We should be seeing current water level unless it's in dynamic mode. Or it's not in dynamic mode. That's probably what's happening. Are you in dynamic mode? Nope, you're not in dynamic mode. Okay. Now if I check this, it's probably not. Are you just going to do it? No, how did I know that that wasn't going to work? Because if it's not a dynamic mode, it's not generating a mesh. Okay, so the way rivers work, there are 2 different kinds of rivers. Let me make sure you're not all lost in chat. What I mean is when the conversation completes, setting the behemoth itself to active as opposed to dormant. That spider dam structure is pretty awesome. Wasn't a bridge last time I played it though. Not to distract you, but how many years ago did you start developing Frontiers and what inspired you to do so? Have you checked out the original Kickstarter? Yeah, but it's been a while since I read it. I could use some distraction. I'm not Tuba Hobbit. I'm not trying to be obtuse. I'm still not totally sure what you're asking. Only because behemoth could refer to a couple of different things, and when you say the behemoth, it sounds as though you're asking about the creature. If you're asking about the mission, when you say active, and when you say the conversation, even when you say the conversation completes, you could be meaning that the exchange completes, or that the mission is. There's just too many, and it's totally forgivable because you obviously you can't possibly know the system. But your statement can still be interpreted in too many different ways for me to answer it. Asking about the mission. Setting the behemoth itself to active. Yeah, I still don't have enough information to parse it. And again, from the perspective of someone watching this stream who's only heard what I've said, I have a feeling that what you're asking makes sense. But from the perspective of someone who knows the whole system, or knows knows the whole system, I know too many random things that make it possible to interpret what you're saying in multiple ways, and I'm having trouble narrowing it down to just what I've told you so that I can interpret it in the way that you mean. Sorry if that's an irritating response. Yeah, I started Frontiers about 3.5 years ago, and what inspired me to do so was actually Minecraft. I know it's probably not what you're expecting. I hadn't played games for a long time. I'd been out of the out of the gaming thing for years. I was doing visual effects, and um, that does not leave much time for anything apart from visual effects. So I wasn't playing games, and when a friend of mine said you have to play Minecraft, they showed it to me one night, just on a whim, and I knew I was in trouble the instant I started playing it. I was like, oh boy, like I can tell I'm just gonna get stuck on this. And so that got me back into games, and it got me back into open world stuff. And the whole time I was playing it, I just kept thinking, I really wish this was more like a Morrowind or an Oblivion, with these elements thrown into it. Like I dig Minecraft, but I didn't like the blocky style, and I wanted missions. And so I just started on my own coding in Unity, and like in Unity 2 point something, and just getting started with it. Um, and it just snowballed from there. And a lot of the same systems that I started at the very beginning are still in the game. I've learned a lot since then. Lars, the graphical limitations of this game, do you think it would have been better to use a more stylized? Yes. If I'd had a larger budget, I would have gone with a more stylized look. However, um, the look that we went with ended up being cheaper because I was able to use a lot more generic assets than I would have been able to otherwise. If we'd gone with a stylized look, we would have had to create all of these assets from top to bottom ourselves, and that would have been enormously expensive, even if they were simpler than what we have in the game now. Because we're in sort of like this gray area where there isn't really a style at all. It's just sort of like pseudo photorealistic, but not really. That look can incorporate a lot of different generic assets, and it ended up saving us money in the long run. Morrowind with crafting, Minecraft with missions, more or less, yeah, and less combat. I didn't want as much combat. What was the original working title? I will never tell. I will never tell. Okay. So what I did here is I loaded one of my terrain chunks. This is the sort of scene format that I use to save game data. You can see all of the chunks sort of in a row here in this long list, and each one of these is well, I technically don't have to save these each in an individual scene because I can load and save this stuff from disk into a scene. But because that process takes a while, I like to save each chunk in an individual scene and edit it and then save it um, out with this tool here, the world chunk script. So what I'm doing right now is I loaded up the chunk that we were just in. Here you can see the default uh, position of the lake, which is much lower than the flooded position. Here you can see the bridge we were just on, and here you can see the river. And this is the river that I'm attempting to fix. Now, the rivers work in two different ways. They're either dynamic or they're static. When they're static, what I do to save a lot of processing time is I actually generate a mesh based on a spline, and then I save the mesh. I just save the vertices in the XML river data, and I dump those vertices into a mesh at runtime. And that saves me the trouble of generating the mesh with the spline, uh, which which is really expensive. However, when it's dynamic and I want it to be able to change, um, I do generate it with a spline, and that's what I need to be doing in this case because this river changes, it animates. So I need to change this to dynamic mode. Check. And then I need to save this chunk. Oops. Come here, console. Save. No reference exception. What's going on there? Reach transform node in T. Behemoth Leviathan dormant. What's up, buddy? What's up, Behemoth Lake? Behemoth Leviathan dormant. You're not finding that, huh? Why not? Here you're getting a glimpse into the hierarchy, the structure. This is the structure that's basically created on the fly by the game. It's just all created at once here. Now, the Behemoth Lake is looking for a transform that it's not finding for some reason, and I'm not sure why that is. Every time I have on most scripts, on these world item scripts, which is sort of like a super mana behavior that has a lot more abilities, I have these functions that can get called before I save it to a chunk, and one of them is on editor refresh, and it's throwing an exception here. Black Lake. Behemoth Lake. Behemoth Leviathan. Where are you, buddy? Here's Black Lake. This is the location. Here you can see these are the radii of the different locations in the world. Right now, I'm looking for a right now I'm looking for this particular script. For some reason, I can't seem to find it. It's not where I expect it. Body of water. Okay, that's why. Come on. Oh, it's not. It's not. That's funny. It was set to inactive for some reason, and that's why I couldn't find it. Boy, that is peculiar. Why would it have such trouble linking itself up here? Let's check the chat to make sure nobody's confused. Yeah, you try, but it's not going to happen. I'm never gonna say. I'm taking that one to my grave. Here's the spline for the wander pattern for the behemoth. Is that what you're supposed to be looking for, buddy? Wander pattern nodes. I don't think this is necessary. I think this is old functionality. So I'm just gonna clear that out because I'm using a spline now. I'm not using the wander pattern nodes. I was originally doing it without a spline. So yeah, we're gonna call that good. Okay, so once that compiles, I'll save this, and then when we load our game again, this river is now set to dynamic. It should be updating to reflect the state of the lake, and then we can move on to the next bug. Yada yada yada. The behemoth is drinking all of your water. Man, that would be something. If it just kept drinking and drinking and, just grew into like a giant balloon. Like a watery version of that phenomenon from Slither. All right, save chunk. Go, go, go. Okay, everything looks to be in order. Right? Yeah, it looks fine. Okay. So that data has been saved. I'll go back to the startup scene. Yes, I do want to save my changes. Thank you. If you have any questions about how I'm doing any particular thing, just chat. I'll stop. Um, I'll explain. I'm zooming through systems and stuff here. I'm just totally skimming over everything because I'm in pursuit of this one tiny problem. Um, but it doesn't hurt for me to get into stuff. For the most part, none of what I'm dealing with is going to be remotely as complex as missions. So um, I don't think I have to worry about getting totally flummoxed. Okay. Let's load Behemoth again. Oh my goodness, it's almost 10:40. That's unexpected. Thought it was going to be around 10. Time flies. I can feel it though. I can feel the post-breakfast coma starting to set in. Oh, come on. Oh, why do you hurt me, Unity? Raghorn. What? Are you okay, Raghorn? Blink twice if you're in trouble. Yeah, standing desks are cool actually. I had one at my old place, and I really liked it, but my feet swelled. Like I'd have to wear shoes, and even then my feet like felt really swollen by the end of the day. Um, so I didn't set it up when I got here. However, one of the best things about working with virtual reality is, you know, I've always wanted to be able to work standing up. Um, I've always wanted, and more than that, I've always wished for a way to actually walk around while I'm working. Um, and the other day, it struck me when I was testing Feltip Circus that I finally have my wish because I'd spent most of my working time that day standing up and moving around and like using my arms and legs, and I always feel so much better when that's the case. Um, so I think instead of doing the standing desk thing, where you're just sort of stationary and your feet are slowly growing in size over the day, I'm going to focus on finding some kind of virtual desktop that lets me program in VR. Um, yeah, I know it sounds kooky, but I don't think we're far off. Where I can actually like move around and get a little bit of exercise. Because if I'm moving, if I'm pressing on the soles of my feet, they don't swell up. It's seriously spooky how big they got. Like I don't think I could have put on boots um, after 6 hours of standing. Okay, I actually don't need to go over there myself. I can just check it here. Where are you, player? Well, something changed. That's it's better than nothing changing. What's your problem, buddy? The spline mesh wasn't activated, but that was all. Boy, that's peculiar. How long do you stream usually? I don't know. The last couple times I streamed, I streamed for about an hour, uh, and then I either ran out of things to do or I smelled breakfast. But I'm new at this, so I'm just sort of figuring it out. Um, I mean, I could stream indefinitely, I suppose. We could go until lunch, maybe. I should probably ask rather than assuming, upon selecting something's got to be done regardless in the conversation, does that trigger the same state in the Behemoth mission as hearing the sound in the Lakeside Crater would, or, I can't remember the other thing you said would start the Behemoth mission. It does. Yes, I can answer that question. Um, Here, something's got to be done regardless. Frontiers, activate mission, mission name equals Behemoth. This tag is for a conversation script, which is like similar to these objective scripts that I've been talking about. This attaches a script to this exchange so that when it is chosen by the player, this gets run. And I can show you real quick. Conversation exchange script. Activate mission. So this is really simple. Um, on action, which is to say when you select the conversation option, we just call missions activate mission. I wanted to go to force complete mission. That can't be right. Activate mission. Go to declaration. There we go. Which just loads the mission if it isn't loaded already, and then activates it. So yes, to answer your question, yes. There is a demo dev setup called Arcadia Unity that I tried at a conference. It is an OSS live coding setup, and you can run Emacs in the VR world. Walk around, see your edits around you, etc. I'm not sure if it's a perfect dev setup, but it was really fun. I'm kind of lame. I can't handle editors like Emacs. They're a little over my head. Um, is it bad that I want to debug missions now? My brain gets stuck. No, I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason I keep at this year after year. Like you want things to work right. You want to know, like, like what's happening. Um, so no, and of course you're welcome. I wish I could supply the entire project to everyone who's watching. The only thing stopping me is that I'm using third-party assets from the asset store, like Pro Mouse or whatever, and the spline editor, stuff like that, which I can't release for free. So I'm stuck giving you access to the source code, which you can't compile, which is frustrating and isn't all that helpful. But again, for what that's worth, I encourage you to poke through it, and maybe you'll see something I don't. Emacs in because you don't need a mouse. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Um, uh, it makes sense. It's just Emacs. Like I tried. I made a sincere effort. The same way I made a sincere effort to move to Linux because I'm not a huge fan of Windows. I used OS X for a long time. Um, I mean, I'll tell you, my hierarchy is Windows, OS X, Linux, and I used OS X mostly when I was in VFX, and everybody else is using it. Um, Linux, I made a sincere effort to get into, and I just can't. I'm just not that cool. My kung fu is not that good. You need to know so much crap to get any little thing to work. Like, if it all runs great, the first time you try something, then it's great. If there's any problem, there's usually like a 15-step solution, and if you try to ask for help, the first thing out of anybody's mouth is usually, why would you want to do that? And I just had to give up. It's the same with Emacs. Um, I feel like people either have it in their DNA to use tools like that or they don't. I don't. I like my tools to be way more friendly, and so I'm going to hold out for an option that doesn't necessarily use the mouse, but maybe the controllers. I don't know how sold you are on standing VR. I'm totally sold on it, and I can't imagine using anything but that for a virtual desktop or programming setup. How do I exit Vim? Every time I have to, log on to my SVN server and you fiddle with it, create a new repository or something, uh, edit the password files, just simple stuff. It turns into a whole afternoon of trying to remember all these goddamn commands. Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, what was I doing? Trying to fix this river. Okay, so we got the river avatar to appear in dynamic mode, which is what we wanted. However, that resulted in the spline mesh not being turned on. So let's take a look at this river avatar start. Okay, that all looks fine. Refresh props. If props dynamic mode, which we are, refresh props dynamic. Master spline enabled equals false. Why would I do that? Oh, I disable it temporarily to add the spline nodes, and then I need to enable it afterwards. Okay, so I'm disabling these before refreshing the spline, before refreshing the flow, and then I need to enable the spline mesh at the end after all of that so that we actually have a mesh. Now, the question is, did this actually raise the height of the river? It would appear. Oh, water renderer is visible. Okay, so that should fix it. So the first time we were quitting out of update and not updating the water level is because it was not in dynamic mode. The second time is this is satisfied, but the water renderer was not visible because I had it shut off. Now that I've turned it on, surely, surely, Black Lake River. It's not the water. What the hell? Let me try something here. Instead of using the Black Lake, no, I am using the Black Lake River. Okay, that should definitely be visible. So what's stopping you? It can't be that the parent chunk is not primary, adjacent, or immediate. If it wasn't one of those things, I wouldn't be in here. Another feeling of having to figure out your own code. What did I do here? Comments do help, and I've certainly gotten in the habit of asserting more of them when I'm building something new. Yeah, comments are great. Uh, what's even better is code that makes sense. Code that's simple and makes sense. Um, Comments only help me so much because uh, I have to remember to update the comments when I update the functionality, which that's a dubious proposition. And so comments can actually lead me astray just as often as they help. I find that the best possible thing is to name things really clearly and to make the functionality as clear as possible. And by the way, I'm speaking in terms of working solo. When I'm working with other people, when I'm working with a team, uh, that's absolutely the wrong approach. You got to comment everything because you can't. you can't count on your own intuition about what you're trying to do to guide you through what you're looking at when you're dealing with somebody else's code. So I'm speaking strictly as uh, someone working as on a solo project right now. Would it be helpful to keep a list in a text file of any changes you're making temporarily to debug, attempt to fix or enable something? Not a programmer. But could the river beyond the bridge being low have to do with Leviathan being completed? Oh, that's an interesting question, Anti-Human. Did I activate Leviathan? Leviathan isn't activated, so we're not in danger of it being completed yet. That's a good question, though. Um, that's a really good question. Uh, as for would it be helpful to keep a list in a text file? There are so many things that could be helpful if I had another person working full time to maintain, uh, a separate system. For instance, on the Steam forums where I'm getting bug reports, over and over and over, I look into moving all of those bug reports over onto Trello because Trello is far better for tracking bugs. But the thing is, when I actually crunch the numbers and do the math, I realize that in order to, first of all, to migrate all the existing outstanding bugs over to Trello would take a long time. Like we're talking about over a week of just doing nothing but that. And furthermore, um, uh, the bugs have been coming in less frequently lately, but especially earlier. Just maintaining parity between the two systems, the bug reports on the forum and the bug reports on Trello, would require at least a part-time job's worth of hours. And at that point, I'm just creating more work for myself than I am just by going through the bug reports on Steam. It's sort of the same with external systems to keep track of what I'm doing with the programming. Even though it makes perfect sense to chart everything and graph everything and keep track of these things in these external systems, like whether it's a text file or a class diagram or who knows what. Even though that makes perfect sense, when you crunch the numbers, you realize that if I'm going to put the effort into maintaining it, which I would have to do in order for it to be useful, it would take so much time that I wouldn't have any time left for development, which is, that's not the point. If I'm organized but can't find time for development, then I've lost again. So this is a common theme with Frontiers, crunching some numbers and realizing that I'm stuck in a suboptimal um, way of doing things because all of the optimal ways of doing things require more manpower. Yeah, don't end up in this situation is really the only solution. Let's buy him a clone. Yeah, that'd be nice. Okay, so yeah, what are we doing? All right, we've got our water renderer. We've got a current water level. All we're really trying to do is to get this. We know that this is satisfied. 0 is not 5. And we know that the water level change speed is sufficient for us to see a change in real time. That'll be one unit per second. And we know that we are in dynamic mode. We know that the parent chunk is in primary, adjacent, or immediate mode. That just means that you can see it, and we can see it. So it has to be that the water renderer is not visible. That's causing this to not update. The water renderer is currently Black Lake River, which is this long mesh that you see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to substitute a random uh, renderer here just to see if that, okay, I can obviously see that thing. I'm wondering if maybe the fact that it's a spline mesh is causing it to not count as being visible. No, that did nothing. Okay, I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check the state of the chunk. just so I don't lose my mind here. It's set to primary, so it's primary. Um, well, let's check some other things here. Maybe I'm setting the water level to something else somewhere else. No, I'm only assigning that in one spot. Is it enabled? Is the river avatar not enabled? River avatar enabled. I don't understand you. Okay, fixed update. Let's make sure nothing's going on here. Well, we already checked that. What could be stopping this? Okay, I don't get it, guys. I'm stumped again. Let's see. Let's see. Maybe you found it. Um, or three, so he can take turns having a vacation from time to time. On my downtime, I make game stuff. So yeah, um, work is my vacation. I've lightly used Trello sometime last year, but I've since switched to Jira for issue tracking. Do you know if Steam allows webhooks or webhooks? Excuse me. This could be used to automate creating issues in a Steam tracker for Steam. Again, another fine idea. Uh, I'll look into that actually. It would still require some like hand moderation because somebody could post something that's just nonsensical and okay, then again, organization documentation sometimes helps saving time on other things like understanding how the missions work. Right, but again, what I'm saying, and please understand what specifically my argument is. It's important because this is a nuanced problem. I am in no way arguing that documentation um, wouldn't help, like good documentation wouldn't help. I'm in no way arguing that it's a waste of time or something like that. Um, Especially if you're working with other people, it's totally necessary. In this particular case, if I went through and spent the time to document missions, um, like document it to a point where I could skim the documentation and refresh my memory more quickly than just looking at the code, that it would take a while, and um, I would have to make sure to keep the documentation updated uh, to that same level of quality. Otherwise, it will rot as I make changes to the missions, which I am still doing, and become a total waste of time. What I'm finding is the time that it takes to do the documentation properly, um, the amount of time that it ends up saving me, like let's say it takes this much time and I save this much time, and this is the amount of time that I spend, that's not spent on development. Well, if I don't do documentation at all and I just rely on the code to tell me what's going on every time I need to dive back into one of these systems, because I'm going to forget anyway. If that takes me like this much time, if I compare that to the this is not like really this is not an effective way to measure anything, but if that takes like another inch of time, whatever that means, um, uh, the benefit of the documentation, like the margin just gets squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until there's almost no point in doing it at all. Um, and if, as I said, keeping the documentation updated every time I make a change is not a for sure thing, which is not with me, uh, then the amount of time wasted just becomes almost all the time that you put into it. So it ends up being less efficient overall. Again, I'm not saying the documentation is a bad thing or that it's not worth it or that it wouldn't help me. I'm just saying to do it right um, would take more time away from development than the benefits would really offset. You can't add debug statements. Okay, yeah, I guess this thing aligns to the at the end of the working session checklist you'd have. Again, if I had someone working over my shoulder, if I had a buddy system, that kind of thing would work perfectly. But odds are, like this has been a very quiet session. Odds are I'm going to get a phone call or someone's going to Skype me with something important. There's going to be an emergency that I have to take care of, not like a critical one, but just something will, you know, remove my focus from the situation, and that won't get done. And if that doesn't get done frequently enough, you learn not to depend on it because depending on something that doesn't get done frequently is worse than not doing it at all and just knowing that it won't get done. Um, you can't add debug statements on the fly in Unity, right? You need to recompile. Yes, you do. Although recompilation is really not that bad. It gets pretty bad in a project this size because it's not just recompiling, it's also updating all the all this data persistence stuff, and that ends up taking like about 30 seconds. But it's not a huge deal to add debug statements. Maybe something along the lines of generated documentation based on XML comments. Um, I tried that too. In fact, there might even be a version of it online. But again, as the two versions drifted out of sync, I found myself referring to it less and less because I'd have to make changes so rapidly. And then, of course, I again something would divert my attention. That the rapid changes would outpace the documentation, and then all of a sudden, all of that effort that I put into keeping the auto-generated documentation was a complete waste because I would refer back to it and it would be out of date. This is one of those problems that uh, really only feels difficult to solve when you're in the middle of it. If I was in your position looking at me having this issue, I would be saying the same things that you're saying now. So I don't begrudge you for, um, sort of pushing these suggestions and saying, no, really, give this a try. I really don't. Uh, it's only now that I'm in the middle of it that I could believe you could be this boxed in by a lack of time. Try a very wrong target level to make sure it's not running. Yeah, I'll do that. Change it to 50. Who knows? Maybe in the world of the math library, 5 and 0 are approximately the same thing. You need you need Pavlok to shock you if you haven't completed your interwork session good habits. Break bad habits in 5 days. Oh my God. Is this real? This can't be real. No. No. This is the this is the best thing I've ever seen. Okay, but how does it track your habits? I'm getting so distracted right now. Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, even if I don't do that, I'm glad I know that that exists. Um, how, Elfword, do you use it? If you use it, I'll consider buying one once I can afford it. How much are they? They're probably way overpriced. I have to. Comes with 30-day money back guarantee. Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, check in the river now. Sorry, I'm messing with the current water level now just to see what kind of results that gets. Hmm. Oh, I just thought of something. Maybe spline mesh isn't updating. Okay, it wasn't updating, but that's not the problem because the spline nodes are set to what they are. Oops, I just lost consciousness. Is the spline not updating? Well, this is a mystery. It's got to be the mesh visibility thing. That's the only thing I can think of, because we verified that this is true. This is, I'm gonna remove that and start this up again. No, we don't need to check that. That's just a bool flag. Okay, let that compile. I've run into situations where how to convert certain things to integers that cause the float math. Yeah, I do know what you mean. Time for debugs to see what state is causing it to break out. Yeah. A testicular version would yield better results. Maybe. The fear of them keeps me from starting bad habits that would require the use of ones in that sense. See, the other thing is, um, so the novelty of that device cannot be overstated. I think it's hilarious, and it might actually work, but um, I can't emphasize enough that I do suffer for these mistakes. It's not as though I get off scot-free. Like you saw how frustrating it was to struggle with the missions after being away from it for so long. Uh, that's not that's not a shock from an electric collar, but it is painful, and it does motivate me to try and think of ways to get out of that situation. So the point I'm making is that it's not for lack of wanting or trying that I don't have this all documented. It's not that I don't think it would be good. It's not that I don't want it to happen or that I don't want to avoid um, the difficulties that come with no documentation. It's just that I can't think of a way out of the box that doesn't steal more development time than it saves. And again, I think the most effective solution is to just not get into this situation ever again. And so far I've done an okay job of staying out of this situation. I really haven't run into problems like this on any other project. Uh, you could say Frontiers is the ultimate electric shock collar. Like to this day, it still just keeps me from those bad habits. Um, yeah. Speaking of startups, I've seen rumblings that venture capital may soon be slowing down in regards to those quirky first product companies. Heard anything regarding that? How long has this been going on? Just a couple days, Mark. So you haven't missed out on much. Evil Bad Guy, are you asking me about that, or are you asking the crowd? Because I don't know anything about venture capitalism beyond, crowdfunding, um, which of course appears to be slowing down, but I only have the vaguest guesses as to why. All right, River, let's see your stuff. Where are you? There you are. Okay, now apparently I did enable the spline mesh. It's enabled. The problem is that I didn't set it to update. There we go. Okay, so I need to take care of that too before I forget. Refresh props dynamic. Okay, that's probably, I have a feeling that I had this in here before and that I removed it for performance reasons. But I'm going to put it back just so that I can get this bug fixed, and then I'll think about performance again later. The spline meshes and the splines that update, they're really, really performance hungry. That's why I use them so sparingly. That's another thing, the performance stuff. 9 times out of 10, if something's complex, uh, it didn't start out as complex as it is now, and it got that way because of performance considerations. For instance, with the missions, if it wasn't so expensive to check the state of all of these things in the world, if it didn't result in like observable lag, um, the structure of checking the missions and stuff, it would be a lot simpler. There wouldn't be a need for doing all that stuff over multiple frames or whatever. So that's another thing I run into. And again, the best solution to that problem is to just avoid the complexity in the first place, because the complexity breeds the performance issues, which breeds complexity, and so on. Jonathan Blow has a whole bunch of videos where he's creating his own language to speed up game development. I've been following that actually, and I thought he was a nutbar at first, but that language is shaping up to be really nice. I intend to I intend to at least give it a try whenever it's released. What is it called? Jai? I think it's Jai, or maybe I'm thinking of Jai Courtney. I don't know. Okay. Heard lots regarding that, but the reality is there are more seed stage and pre-seed stage investors, and it's more effective. Why aren't you coding right now? I am. Code's compiling. Why aren't you special? I'm getting distracted and dealing with loading screens. So there. Well, Black Lake River, you are dynamic. You're no longer checking visibility. Where is update? Here we are. And we'd be getting spammed with debug logs if the chunk wasn't primary. Wait. We're not getting spammed with debug logs. Now the question is, oh, I was an idiot. I didn't add the name of it. We could have multiple rivers. Okay, what I'll do real quick. So I'm going to look up every river avatar that is not the Black Lake River and shut them off. So that way, if we're getting spammed with river avatar, then we'll. Unity occasionally has this shader wants normals, but the mesh doesn't have them message that gets spammed when I'm looking at things in the editor, and it makes it very hard to debug sometimes. Okay, river avatar. The one river avatar that is active, chunk is not primary, adjacent, or immediate. Well, I'll be damned. How can that be, my friend? How can that be? Well, that's what certainty gets you. All right, I'm gonna just comment that out. We're gonna start again. Apparently, that's what's doing it, and I guess I'll have to figure out why that previously so dependable parent chunk is function is returning a false result. That's a frightening thought. The rabbit hole just goes down and down and down. Okay, more chat. Laura, it's definitely mean to imply any of that. I meant more as a reminder utility. Oh, you mean about yeah. Don't worry about it. I mean, suggest whatever. Like I said, from the outside looking in, I'd be suggesting what you're suggesting. Uh, so I don't expect you to. I don't even expect you to believe me. What I expect is for everyone listening to think I'm full of shit and to think that I'm resisting for some bizarre, maybe even unconscious reason, resisting documentation for a bizarre unconscious reason that is only hurting myself and doesn't help in any way. For you to believe anything else, for you to be anything other than skeptical of what I'm saying, would be a bad move. I suspect you don't get as much done in stream. I'm not getting nearly as much done today. Um, I think this river problem, I probably would have knocked out this river problem in about 20 minutes tops, including loading times. I'm getting nothing done, but I'm actually having a good time, so it's relaxing. Um, and It was actually helpful crashing and burning with the missions because uh, that's that's good motivation to sit down and just focus on figuring out the missions before sitting down and trying to fix the missions. Um, yeah, if I hadn't been in a position where I sort of was expected to explain how they work and then failed miserably at doing so, realizing in the process that I have really forgotten more than I expected, I don't know that I would have realized. I don't think I would have figured that out so quickly. So that's been helpful. Um, but yeah, I've been slow as a slug on this river problem. It's I'm sure it's a pathetically easy problem. I'm just getting distracted every few minutes by chat and stuff. All right, river. Still. Black Lake River. What? Okay. Oh, something's going on. Something's happening. Oh no, I'm still set to don't update. Okay, so that's not going to do it. Simply calling refresh isn't going to do it. Where'd you go? Yeah, it's not important to do that. What I need to do is set update mode when spline changed. In fact, there's no reason not to set that because yeah, there's no reason not to do that because that takes care of the performance problem if it's only updating when the spline is changed. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Okay. So we weren't seeing the river because I still hadn't set this correctly to set it to update when the spline changes. But the river, although unseen, is now flooding the banks. Now, that solves the problem of this river. Um, it still leaves the issue of why this function was returning false. I'm going to uncomment it briefly. Is chunk mode. All this is doing is a convenience function that's using my flags method to check if the chunk mode and the current mode match. So I pass it this enum, which I convert to an int. Maybe I'm using the wrong condition type here. Maybe it should be match all instead of match any. I'm going to look up my usage in cases where, let's see. No, I'm using, no, match any is the correct one. Because I want to be able to, when I'm asking, are you this chunk mode, if you're primary, immediate, whatever, I'm passing all of those flags in as a flags enum. Where is it? Primary, immediate, adjacent, distant, blah, blah, blah. And But that's interesting. Oh, maybe the problem is, did I not set this to use flags? I don't think I did. That could be an issue. Oh boy. In order for me to use this correctly, I think I just found an interesting bug. Um, so I have this flags class that I use everywhere because I'm always comparing flags of all kinds, and the flags class itself is very simple. Um, like this is the entirety of it, and all it does is takes a couple of integers and a check type, whether you want all the flags to match or just one of the flags to match, and it does a basic binary flag check. Now, I use that in conjunction with a lot of enums. Now, because C# is kind of dumb, when you create an enum class that that you intend to use as flags, even though you mark it as flags and you set the values manually so they all work together nicely, with the bit shifting and stuff, you unfortunately can't create a generic method here that gets past an enum of any type. Like I used to do this with basically this public static bool. Oh, yikes. Formatting. Yeah, okay, here. In this case, I've commented because I was so pissed off. This function used to be generic. You could check time of day by passing it to a templated function, time of day, and then you'd pass it the actual enum. And you can't constrain to generic types where t equals enum. And because you couldn't constrain to generic types, you had to perform a conversion at runtime, and that allocated so much garbage. Like it allocated a tiny bit of garbage every time you did a flag check, but I'm doing like hundreds of flag checks a frame. And so you ended up just with all this garbage piling up, and I ended up having to force you to pass it an unsigned integer instead of using a generic function. This has caused ripple. Remember how I was talking about complexity comes a lot from performance stuff? This has caused a ripple effect where instead of having these, this wonderful generic function that I can use to check almost anything, I'm converting these enums into ints before sending them in, because it has to be an explicit conversion. And there's just been so many weird little bugs that have cropped up where like the enum isn't using flags correctly, which appears to be in the case with this chunk mode. I'm tempted to just do this and set all these values right now. And once I did that, I have a feeling that that bug would disappear. But the problem is, if I've stored chunk mode enum values in any XML files, it's going to be values of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I try to parse those values, it might even throw an exception or something. At the very least, these values, they won't correspond to what I'm setting these flag values to now. So that might screw me. But I guess I gotta do it. I guess I just gotta do it. I don't think I'm using this in any XML files. I don't think I have any like variable checks that check chunk mode or anything like that. It should all be at runtime. So I think I'm going to do that. As a Kickstarter backer of Frontiers, I just want you to know I'm still very happy to have supported Kickstarter about patronage, not pre-ordering. I thank you for saying that. This obviously hasn't turned out the way that I wanted it to. What I wanted was to be in early access. I didn't even want to be in early access. I wanted to take what I thought was a pretty far along prototype, build on that as quickly as possible, and release, within the original time frame, plus a couple of months to a year for the stretch goals. But of course, that's not what happened. And so my brother is actually the one who sort of changed my perspective on what the Kickstarter should be at that point. He said, at this point, like even if the game doesn't get finished, like even if it never got finished, I'm not saying that's the case, but even if it never got finished, um, the best thing you can do is to try to provide as much entertainment and value out of the Kickstarter process as you can, so that people feel like they got something. And uh, based on the feedback I've got, uh, especially after posting that 5-part series where I went into why the complexity of Frontiers is such a big problem, I feel like I managed to do that. I feel like I managed to create a campaign and a post campaign that had some value beyond just the game, that people actually enjoyed being a part of. So every time I hear that, it makes my day a little bit better. Flags has no meaning. It only enables nicer to string. Yeah, I know. What I meant was I hadn't defined um, the flag values. So by default, um, these are just incremented instead of being values that can be, stacked properly in a byte. Um, and every time I do that, I try to put the flags on here so I know what my intention is. The uh, if I'm using it in this context where I'm sending it to flags, it absolutely has to have those values in there, or otherwise this check is meaningless. Like it's no wonder this is returning nothing, and it makes me a little bit spooked about where else I'm using this convenience function. I'll have to perform a check. Hopefully, it's not too many places. Okay, so I've saved that. I'm turning that back on because at this point it should function correctly. So let's see. This is seriously the most inefficient bug hunting I've ever done. You can use them as flags anyway. It's a good decision. Yeah, you're right. You're right, GigaCloss, but it's consistently wrong from what I saw. Log the actual state, see which one is false. What did GigaCloss say? I don't see a GigaCloss. No, I'm curious. Maybe it doesn't matter, but is chunk mode adjacent spelled correctly? Shouldn't it be adjacent? It doesn't matter. Um, no, it doesn't matter. And it is consistently wrong. I remember I'm not the worst speller in the world, but occasionally I have my moments. And I remember I Ryan Span was mortified because when I created our SVN repository for Euclidean, I spelled Euclidean wrong. I don't even normally spell it wrong, but this time I spelled it weird. Like, how did I spell it? Like Euclidean with IAN. And at one point we had to pass the repository along to someone who was like, I can't believe we have to we have to give this misspelled repository. They're gonna think we're idiots. They never mentioned it though, so either they didn't notice or they were too polite. Yeah, I'm just thinking about. I'm getting angry about that inability to constrain to a generic enum type again, because that's such a simple thing. And I mean, I don't know if it's simple to implement, but conceptually it's so simple and so useful. And the fact that it was garbage collection that forced me to get rid of what was really a very elegant and um, fail-proof system just irks me. And the fact that it was garbage collection when you're converting an enum to an integer, like the fact that you could generate enough garbage doing that frequently to cause problems, that just blows my mind too. Okay. All right, river. There we go. There we go. Now we're talking. All right, so this is back in place, which means it is checking to see if the parent chunk is primary, adjacent, or immediate, and it's not returning because otherwise the water level would not be. Let's raise the water. Yeah, look at that. There we go. That's what I like to see. All right. That's satisfying. Okay, I'm probably going to break for lunch in about 30 minutes. But before then, I will travel down the river a bit. I won't make you wait through the incredibly long walk cycle or the walking speed. Yeah, see, that's nice and overflowing. That's the way it should be. Obviously, the character doesn't run this quickly in the real game. I've turned on Dev Sprint so that I can get to and from places quickly. Oh, am I going to be... Yeah, okay, I can make it. It is so ugly with everything turned down. I feel bad for people who have to play it like this. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay. So the water spider dam did build. That's good. Gonna go back to a mode where I can see. Flags, check type, match any is used in activate objective missions, by the way, just for the record. Okay, now that you mentioned that, I was tempted to just brush that off and say that's not a problem. But I'm going to verify. I'm going to verify that the enum that I'm using actually uses flags correctly. So that would be in objective script. No. Activate objective. So what we need to check here to make sure that we're not getting screwed here is that mission status uses flags, which it does. We're okay. We're okay, guys. It's going to be okay. Good catch, though. Good catch. I've never seen a water spider dam this big before. Okay, now I'm going to turn off Dev Sprint. And, okay, first I'm going to save. I'm thrilled that this generated because the water spider dam is one of the more complex structures, believe it or not, because it's destructible. And the destructible structures, I have filtering turned off for that texture. That's interesting. Okay, so it looks like the textures are working, or the colliders, excuse me. That's good. Did the egg spawn up here? How do I get up there? Shouldn't I know this? Okay, here we go. Yes, the egg sac is here. That's good. Egg sac. I thought I had a more complete description than that, but that's all right. Okay, now let's try going inside the spider dam. I'm not seeing any spiders on this thing. That seems like a mistake to me. I believe I should be seeing spiders. I'll make a note of that. They should be crawling around on the outside, I think. Okay, now this should trigger an underground transition right about here. Well, something happened. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen if I try to use House of Healing in here. Oh, I did all right. Okay, I'm underground. I'm going to go immediately above ground just to see. Yeah, go away. Shoo! Wow, are we actually going to get through this section without too many horrible bugs? I'll have to load and check and make sure that I actually was dying of hunger or something, that it wasn't just like a funky collision error. I wasn't paying attention to my health. Maybe one of you saw whether my health was still full when that happened. Okay, we've got a nice low water level here. That climb is a little funky, but I'm going to let it go. Okay, egg sac. It's amazing how quickly your standards drop when you have like 16 more hours of missions to debug. Like, oh yeah, climbing just clips me right through a wall. I don't fucking care. I just don't fucking care. If you can get up there, you can complete the mission. Okay, now, I believe... Okay, now, normally, when you walk up here, you trigger an event that takes place. But because Behemoth isn't activated, that event's not taking place. I'm going to exit this structure on the other side here. Okay, good. And now I'm going to activate mission. Um, let's see, what's the syntax? Mission, activate Behemoth. I'm just going to activate the mission so that I can see if that event triggers. Well, that's interesting. When I activate it manually, it doesn't autocomplete. Okay, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna think too much about it right now. Okay. Oh, there it is. Oh, yikes. Okay. Big scary monster does in fact try to grab you when Behemoth is activated. I was dying from hunger. Okay, good. Spider Assassin crit. Yeah, I know it didn't complete. I don't get it. Um, I don't know, man. Oh, snap. Did I just drop into the river? I did. I'm an idiot. I don't think there's a way to get out of this. I might as well make a note. You have to be able to get out of this. I'm gonna have to cheat here. There we go. Safe and sound. Okay, so I'm very pleased that this dam is generating correctly and that the behemoth appears when the mission is active. Now, do I want to test blowing up the dam? I don't think I'm going to do that now because it would have to be totally artificial, you know, by like manually setting the mission objectives. And I don't want to do that manually. I want to do it organically by actually playing. The lack of spiders is a little strange. I'm going to check that out right now. There should be a water spider dam exterior, above ground spider dam, above ground spider den, excuse me. We've got a creature den here. And a creature den spawns creatures, predictably. It is a location. How big are you? You're that big. It has spawned no creatures. Name of creature, water spider. Do I have a water spider? That's the problem, isn't it? Spider. Spider body. Okay, spider body is the body for the creature. Let's look at our creatures manager and make sure I have a spider type defined, or water spider type defined. Characters, creatures. Okay. So what I'm doing right now is we've got an above ground spider den here, which is a location that when it spawns should spawn creatures, by like raycasting down onto the structure below it and placing them. It has spawned none. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that it's trying to spawn a type of creature that actually exists. The types of creatures are stored in the creatures manager right here. In the creatures templates, we've got la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Water spider is defined, so it does exist. Let me just make sure its props aren't gobbledygook. Okay, it doesn't have a drop category defined, but that's not important. Spider body, okay, it's using a body that exists. Okay, so that's not the problem. Let's see. What else we've got here? Spawner. This could be funky. Um, okay, spawn creature using method top down. We don't have any manual spawn points. The min and max spawned objects is fine. It's made no attempts, so it hasn't even tried. This is interesting. AG Spider Den. Let's take a look at this. Creature Den. I'm looking at the prefab now from which this Spider Den is instantiated. And I'm wondering if the creature den if its script needs to be enabled before it will spawn things. What on earth? On initialized, on visible, on player visit, on play. So all of these functions, I'll just give you a super brief overview of what I'm looking at. This is a world item script, which is, like I said, it's like a mono behavior script on crack. Like it has a whole bunch more functionality than a mono behavior script, especially when it comes to script caching. Um, like it can access what other scripts are on the game object very, very quickly, much more quickly than a regular mono behavior for performance purposes, of course. And it has a lot of functions that you can override and ask to do specific things. And the spawner overrides on initialized, which is something that happens after awake and start, and on enable and all of those functions. What I'm trying to see now is whether I have an update function of any kind. Oh, I do, fixed update, which would require if spawn creatures count is 0, turn ourselves off. Okay, so that's expected. I was wondering if it had to be enabled, like if the script had to be enabled and running regular updates in order to spawn anything, but it doesn't. It's only active if it spawns something. Now, what triggers it to spawn something? On initialized spawner I do nothing with that. The spawner will take care of creating any new creatures. This function will take care of respawning any saved creatures. Okay, that means that in spawner, hey look, I documented it. I documented something. Look at me go. All right, now spawner is a generic script that spawns pretty much anything. You can use it for creatures, you can use it for objects, whatever. So, on initialized, world item on visible plus equals on visible. So when we see it, we spawn the items over time. We go through our spawner settings, which are here. We have exactly one. Type is creatures. Good. Method is top down. We already looked at this. Availability, always. It will always spawn. None times spawned, max times spawned, max times spawned. No, it doesn't matter because availability is always. We only check if that's set to max. Okay, min spawned objects 3, max spawned objects 7. Num failed attempts 3. I was looking at num attempts saying, oh, it hasn't attempted to do anything. But it tried to spawn 3 spiders and it failed. Okay. This is exciting, guys. We're figuring stuff out. Okay. Now, what we're attempting to do is to get an above ground spawn point. If this returns false, then we know we've failed. So we create a new spawn point, we figure out our target, cast array from the center of the location outwards. No, that's if it's a sphere point. We're doing top down. Get a random point in sphere, scale to the location's radius. Okay, good. Terrain, hit, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Get terrain height at in-game position. This is a worker function. This guy gets used all the time. Let me make sure. Let me check. What did the fish say when he suddenly ran into a wall? I don't know. Different question. Are you extending Unity's character controller or using a rigid body for character movement? Oh my God. I'm using I don't even know how to describe it. I'm using an unholy union of rigid body movement, um, what's it called? Object detection? No, pathfinding movement, and character controller occasionally. It's as awful as it sounds, but it was necessary to get characters to do everything I want. It's all contained in the script Motile, Motile, which you can look up on GitHub and gaze upon in horror. Damn. Damn. Yeah, I'm with Elfward. Leave. That was terrible. Okay, so if I'm getting terrain height at in-game position, this function is robust. Um, I don't have to worry about this guy freaking out because I use this sucker everywhere. It works great. I love it. It's even documented. So we can assume that this is returning true information. Now, if the raycast hit terrain or hit terrain mesh or and didn't hit a structure mesh, oh, well that's the problem right there. That's the problem right there. This is a structure mesh. Structure custom collider is the layer, and that's the layer that returns hitting true for a structure mesh. I guess when I was thinking of spawning creatures, I was thinking about spawning them on the ground. And I didn't want, okay, I remember this now. There was a wolf den and it was spawning creatures like on the roof of things. It was spawning wolves up on the roof of structures. So I just said, if you hit a structure mesh, just don't spawn anything there. Consider it a failure. And I didn't realize that that would ripple to affect the spider dam. or spiders on dams. So how are we going to fix this? What we need is a flag in the spawn settings. Okay. I'm going to add something to the settings. Okay. I'm going to create a property called spawn on structure meshes. So this will be set to false by default. This is why I love XML, because I can just throw this in here and I don't have to worry about all my save data getting screwed up because of binary offsets. I'm going to set that to false by default. And now when I check to see if I'm hitting a structure mesh, in order for uh, getting the point to fail, um, I have to check whether we're supposed to spawn on structure meshes. So if we're not supposed to spawn on structure meshes and we hit a structure mesh, then this would count as this would not count as a success. So I'm going to save that. Then once that compiles, I will set the water spider dam I will set its spawner setting to allow spawning on top of structures. And then I'll save this chunk. Of course, because I've altered this in my save game, that change won't propagate. So I'm going to have to go into my save file and delete that above ground spider dam so that it knows to pull the data from world instead of my game. Is there a name for this? Oh, come on. Unity. You know what? I'm actually going to call it a day. That crash was perfectly timed. Almost 12. I'm starving, and that fish joke has left a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm going to get some food and call it a day. Thanks for dropping in. All right, I hope that was enjoyable. And this will be up on YouTube in a little bit if you missed the beginning and want to see me. You should be sorry. That was terrible. I'm all for a corny joke, but some just cross the line. This should be up on YouTube shortly if you missed the beginning and want to see me flummoxed over the structure of missions. All right, later.